Thank you for joining us for Biotone's Trigger Point Pedi. You'll be learning a technique to make trigger point therapy less painful to the feet. In this therapeutic spa protocol, we have several tools we'll be using. We have 2 small hand towels, a plastic sheath, thermal blanket, and a large bath towel, as well as a large bowl that I've lined with a plastic bag to soak the feet in, and the plastic bag is for sanitary reasons. We have 2 rubber spa bowls, our bolster, and a large pitcher of warm water. Our products are going to be Muscle Comfort Specialty Blend, the Micro Buff Body Polish, and the Body Lux Hydrating Wrap. Today we're teaching the Trigger Point Pedi as a standalone treatment. So under the assumption that you haven't already done a body massage or body wrap of any sort, we want to make sure that we integrate the work that we're going to do on the feet, which is very specific, with the rest of the body. Otherwise the client will feel like their feet got worked really well, but everything else got left out. So we can just do a few rocking and compressions, arm pulls, maybe even a little bit of shoulder rotation. Some gentle work on the hand. Could loop around to the other side, do that on the other arm as well. And then a little shoulder neck stretch. Maybe a little occipital ridge pull. And then a full cross body stretch. Bringing that up through the spine and gently pressing the hip back. And then rock down through the hips, all the way to the feet, and we're ready to start our Trigger Point Pedi. I'm going to bring this top blanket up and just cover her here. I want to make sure that she feels protected, so we're going to diaper drape with this top sheet. So I'm going to bring it into the center line, and then I'm going to grab the open edge of the sheet from the sides and pull it up. And then what I'm going to have you do is just lift your knees ever so slightly for me. And I just pull that right up to the knee line, leaving this open so that I can pull it back down later when I'm ready. Go ahead and relax. And now that'll protect her. Since we're working from the bottom of the table, she knows that she's covered and can feel safe and secure. So now we're going to go ahead and set up here. We're going to put our large bath towel. Do me a favor, lift your feet up for me slightly and bring that all the way up to the knee. There we go. Then our thermal blanket, which I have folded in half so it's the appropriate size for a foot-only treatment. All right. And lastly, our plastic sheet. Perfect. Our first step is to exfoliate, and we're using the Micro Buff Body Polish for that. I just need a small amount, and I'm going to apply that to the foot and about halfway up the leg. And then to do the exfoliation, we're going to do small circles. We're going to go over each area 3 times with slightly increasing pressure on each rotation. So the first one is somewhat light, then we come back a second time with a little bit more pressure, and then a third time with even more pressure. Making sure to pay attention to the back of the heel, and the top of the toes, and any other areas where there might be rough, dry spots. She has a little bruise on her leg, so I want to make sure I'm very careful over that and don't scrub too hard. So we have to remember when we do exfoliation, it's not massage. We're not doing this. We're doing these little circles, and that's going to help slough off all that dry, dead skin. For our removal, we could remove this with warm, moist towels, or if we want to take it up a notch, you can use a large rubber spa ball. So what we do with this is we're just going to have her lift her feet up. I'm going to slide this in and have her bend her knees. We could even add an extra bolster in underneath her knee, which I think I'll do. After exfoliating the legs with the Micro Buff body polish, we could either remove that with a warm, moist hand towel, or we could take it up a notch and do as I've done here. I added an extra bolster in to help her legs be supported, and I have a nice large spa bowl and my warm water here, and I can just pour that gently over her feet. How does that feel? Does that feel nice? Yeah. I'm just kind of doing really gentle movements, just sort of pampering her feet as I remove that exfoliant. I don't actually use that much water, and then I can come in and just use the water that's already in the bowl to continue that process. And then I have handy a warm towel. I can bring her 1 foot out and just do a little bit of further removal. Since we're going to be using the Body Lux Hydrating Wrap, that product doesn't get removed after the wrap. So we need to make sure that we remove all the exfoliant, or the client may leave still feeling a little bit of the grit. So we want to do a nice thorough removal. And then we'll just bring her foot down, side her body there. And then the same thing on the other side. Part of the key is to not use too much water, because if this bowl gets over full, then it becomes heavy and it's really hard to remove. So you just use just enough water to get the buff off. Now that we've removed the Micro Buff body polish, we're going to apply the Body Lux Hydrating Wrap. Bring this up to basically right underneath the knee. And it's a thin layer, not too much product, because this is going to absorb into the skin a little bit, and then it's going to stay on the skin. We're not going to remove it. And this will just power moisturize. And then we're going to go ahead and wrap the plastic around her legs. We can bring her legs a little bit closer together. Wrap that around. And then I've got a warm hand towel that I'm going to drape across that just to give a little extra warmth. And then we're going to wrap that in our thermal blanket and our large bath towel. And I'm going to go ahead and cover her back up. And for 5 to 7 minutes, we can do an arm, hand, neck, face massage while the wrap warms all the tissue of her lower leg and the Body Lux Hydrating Wrap absorbs into the skin. Then we'll come back and remove this, and we'll get into finding those trigger points and releasing them. Now that she's been in the wrap for 5 to 7 minutes, we're going to go ahead and remove all of our materials here. As I open this, I'm going to open it slowly. The room is probably cooler than it is inside the wrap, and I don't want her to get a chill. So we're just going to go one layer at a time slowly. Pull off our hot towel. And as I remove the plastic, I'm going to kind of grab the material and kind of pull it around, kind of lifting off any excess product that's on her skin. And I'm going to roll this plastic sheath into itself. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the thermal wrap at the top and the plastic, and I'm just going to pull those out at the same time. The Body Lux Hydrating Wrap becomes our finished product. So we're going to use this product to now start our treatment with massage. I'm just going to work down her lower leg, coming across the anterior tibialis, and my movements are really coming up to the bone and pulling the tissue away from the bone and toward the table. Just creating a little spread. And I'm going to bring that all the way down the top of the foot. and into the toes. And we'll go ahead and do that over here on the other side as well. I'm going to watch out for that little bruise she has on her leg. Make sure that you pay attention to any cuts, nicks, scratches, or bruises that your clients may have. Okay. Now, as we start to look for trigger points in the foot, I'm feeling for little small taut bands of tissue. Trigger points themselves will feel like a little grain of sand or a piece of rice in the tissue, but you may not find that initially. What you might find is a really taut band, and if you follow that band, it will lead you to the trigger point. Once you find the trigger point and press on it, your client will typically experience some level of discomfort. If you're pressing too hard, they may even feel a sort of to your soul pain. So we want to come in very gently. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to work through the tissue one line at a time, feeling for taut bands and then following those taut bands to see if I find any of those extremely tender places. And my client's going to communicate with me as well. If I find something that's particularly tender, I want her to tell me. And I actually feel something on the top of her foot right here. There's just a little knot. I don't feel that grain of sand or that rice. I feel the band. So I'm going to follow the band and it leads me right there. On a scale of 1 to 10, how tender is that? A 7. And a 7 is about a therapeutic level. We want to work at a 6 or a 7. So once I find that point, and in this case, I followed the taut band and it's a very distinct little knot. It's tiny, again, about the size of a grain of rice. And I'm going to work my way around it. So if that little grain of rice is right there, I'm going to work it from all sides. I'm going to come and work all the way around it and feel for a place that increases or decreases the amount of tenderness that she feels. And when I find an area that increases the tenderness, I'm going to hold my hold for a couple of seconds at that point in time. So I'm going to come back on it right there. And I'm going to kind of work around it in a circle, just feel all of its sides. And that's where I feel it's the hardest or the tightest. Is that the most tender, like the direction that I'm pressing? If you could have me move slightly up, slightly down, slightly left, slightly right, would you have me move one way or another?
Down.
Slightly down. In there? Okay. And so we can use our client to help us guide our movement. And then I'm going to hold that for anywhere from 8 to 12 seconds. She's going to take nice deep breaths in and out. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is that tenderness level?
5.
About a 5? Okay. And I can feel the tissue starting to twitch. And that's what trigger points do. They have a twitch response, a local twitch response. And when you hold them, as you basically rob that tissue of oxygen, because you're holding it so the oxygen can't get in, it starts to twitch and release from the ischemia. That's sometimes we call it ischemic pressure. Okay, and now on a scale of 1 to 10. A 3, 2. And that's typically what happens. Once you find the point and hold it, the tenderness will spike, and then over the course of those, 8 to 10 seconds, 8 to 12 seconds that you're holding it, the pain scale will reduce. And that's the trigger point releasing, and then you move on and find the next one. You don't want to over-treat, so you don't want to treat the same trigger point 6, 7, 8 times. You might come back to it, loop back around and treat it one more time, maybe even 2, but you don't want to overdo it, because if you do, your client's going to leave and very likely become sore and tender in the aftermath. So the idea is to integrate and not to go too deep and not to do too many rotations. So again, I'm going to go back to my pattern, which is to come through the tissue, one section at a time, feeling for taut bands. And I'm just going to follow up and come through the toe And again, start at the heel and slide up. Now, pressure here is relatively light. The deeper I press, the less I feel. So I want my pressure to be firm, but not really hard, because I'll end up muting my senses and I won't be able to feel those little tiny subtleties that we're looking for. You okay there? Okay. So again, on the top of her foot, right in there. All right, so I'm just going to kind of follow the taunt band until I find the knot, which I think is right there. Scale of 1 to 10. 6, okay. And now I'm going to move around, feel all angles of that little knot, and it feels like I need to come from this angle. Now, if I was going to move left, right, up, down, would you have me move, or would you have me stay where I am? Okay, so I'll just stay there. Nice deep breaths in and out. Good. And on a scale of 1 to 10? 2. Right? And I can hold it for another couple seconds. This one didn't have that local twitch response. It just released and she felt it. All right, and then I'm going to continue my line. And trigger points can be in the toes too, so as you come over the toes, don't just kind of pop off them. Go slow and feel the tissue. All right, and then along the side of the foot. And oftentimes right in here in the stirrup, especially for ladies who wear a lot of high heels, you'll find some tenderness, kind of right there, right? And she just kind of smiled. Was that a, how do you know that's there? Smile.
When you
Press on it. Yeah. And does that travel anywhere, or does it stay right there? Yeah. Sometimes when you hit a trigger point, there'll be a referral zone. So when you press on the trigger point, it'll actually send referral to another part or another area. So I could press on her foot and it could refer into her calf somewhere. And oftentimes if you find those, it's nice if you come in and hold both the trigger point and the area where the client's feeling the referral at the same time, and that can help connect it as well as have it release a little bit faster. So what's our scale there on 1 to 10? Okay. Would you have me move up, down, left or right? So toward me, toward the toes, okay. And then maybe come back down a little, right? So I could feel that after she told me to move up, I moved up, but then it almost like pulled me back down into it. So does that feel like I'm on the right spot now? Okay. And then we'll hold that for our 8 to 10 to 12 seconds. And then on the scale of 1 to 10, a 3. So I'll hold it for another second. And then I might actually move around a little and then press on it from a different angle. So now I'm coming in from the side. Same little knot, but coming from a different angle. And on a scale of 1 to 10, yeah, so it's back up to a 6. And what you'll find is as you do that, as you move to different points on the same spot, they'll release faster. So instead of it being 8 to 12 seconds, it'll only take 2 or 3. And on the scale of 1 to 10 now? All right, a 2. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to move a little bit. And this knot is just, it's a pretty big knot. I can't get to the core of it yet. All the tissue around that little, I can feel the grain of rice under there, but all the tissue around it it's thick. So I'm really releasing that tissue around. I don't think I've actually made it to the core trigger point yet. Right there? Okay. Scale of 1 to 10. Okay. Let your toes relax. There you go. Deep breath in. Good. And now? 5, okay. Take a big deep breath in and breathe all the way down into your foot. And out. All right, and on a scale of 1 to 10?
3.
3, okay. Oftentimes having your client take a big deep breath will help release a point. I don't know if it's a function of distraction or just, that expansion of the lungs or whatnot, but if they're tight and they're holding, that breath releases. And a lot of times, it can hurt when you press on a trigger point. So the natural tendency can be to tighten around it. So taking that big deep breath in expands the lungs and opens up the body, and it's hard to remain tight and contracted in one area when you're open and releasing in another. All right. So now this tissue is starting to soften, and I can feel like I can get deeper. And now right there, right? So now I can feel that little grain of rice in there, and I can actually get to it. And what is that on a scale of 1 to 10?
4 or 5.
Okay, and when I first touched it?
6.
All right, so 6 down to 4 or 5, and now? 3, okay, so it's dropping off really quickly. All right, and I can kind of feel there's a pulse in there. I'm getting a little bit of a local twitch response now, and there's a little bit of a pulse, and it just feels like I need to come up and then press back down into that point. Am I there? Okay. And let me know when all of that tenderness has sort of subsided out and it's gone down to a 1 or a 0. Okay. So even though I worked this area for several minutes, I was working it very gently. I wasn't pressing really hard, and I was moving around and holding the point from different directions. So I wasn't coming on the exact same tissue over and over and over again. That's really important. I was pressing on it from here, and then coming to the side and pressing on it there, and then coming from this side and pressing on it there, and then coming from straight on top of it and pressing into the bone, coming up there. So I'm working it from all different angles, not just coming on the same thing over and over and over and over again, because that's going to end up irritating them. Now, once we've kind of worked a point and gotten a release like that, we want to make sure we integrate it. So you want to do some effleurage strokes, maybe a little bit of, twisting or moving the foot, a stretch. You could even do a little bit of PNF and have her go ahead and press your foot into my hand. Now she's using those muscles, and go ahead and curl your toes all the way around. Really kind of curl your toes and arch your foot. Good. And now relax. So I'm going to have her resist me, and then I'm going to follow that with a stretch, and then resist me again. Push, 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 push. Good. And I'm only resisting with about 40% of my ability, and then curl your toes. Curl them, curl them. Good. And then relax. Okay, I'm going to stretch you and you just relax. All right. Now we can move on and start working through the heel a little bit. It's not going to be unusual to find some trigger points through the Achilles tendon. So I'm going to start high, and I'm going to work my way down toward the heel, doing little pinches. Now if you're working with a lady who wears a lot of heeled shoes, very likely that her Achilles tendon is shortened a little bit, because that position of being in those heels pushes the heel up and shortens through the calf and the Achilles. So you're going to want to come in gently. If you come pinch really hard, they're going to go through the roof. I'm just going to work through. I'm feeling for a taunt band again. And there's one. And I'm just going to follow that down. You okay? Is that tender? Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, how tender in general? A 9. Okay, so I need to lighten up. She's not tensing too much, so it's hard for me to tell. If I didn't ask her, I wouldn't know. So is that a little better? Okay. I'm just really feeling and working through that tissue, bringing it down into the heel. Okay. And right here is where I feel the most tension. Right in there. Okay. So I'm going to do exactly what I did before on the foot. I'm going to work it from different angles. I'm going to work very slowly. You let me know if my pressure ever goes above, say, a 7, okay? That way she can kind of gauge me, because I know that this can be very tender. All right? So right there. Does that feel like I'm on a good spot? Okay. And what's your pain scale on a 1 to 7 or 1 to 10? Okay. Okay. So nice deep breaths in and out. And there's a good local twitch response going on there. Good. I'm going to effleurage that before I come back and work it some more. Now I'm going to work from the heel coming up. And you can even bring the toes down and shorten that tissue, fold it up a little bit, which is going to make it easier to sort of grab and manipulate the tissue. Oh, you okay there? All right. So I'm going to bring her foot down and I'm going to come across underneath and pull my fingers back into the Achilles. That way. This is going to be a little bit of a broader pressure and not quite as pinpointed. There we go. Does that feel a little less tender doing it that way? Okay, good. All right. And I'm going to follow this taunt band up. It's going all the way up into her calf. All right. I can even take my hands and kind of bring my two hands together and use that to separate the calf out a little bit and work my way down. All right, and then we'll come back to that point now. Right there. Okay, scale of 1 to 10. Okay. And now? Okay. So it's decreasing quickly? Okay. As your client learns and understands their participation, they'll go, oh yeah, right there, oh a little left, a little right, a little harder, oh that's a 7, that's a 6. And they start working with you because they understand the process. So it's really important to include them, let them know what you expect. This is therapeutic spa. The idea is for it to be relaxing and not to create as much pain so that you still get some of that luxurious, but at the same time, you're getting some work done that's going to have some long-term beneficial effect for them. All right? Because this protocol is about half an hour, give or take, you're going to take about 10 minutes to do the initial application, wrap, and removal, and then 10 minutes on each leg of targeted trigger point. So again, after releasing through the Achilles, I'm going to make sure I do a little stretch in there. And just to kind of recap the steps. As we work, we're going to come up with our lines, making sure we go line over line, feeling each part of the foot coming all the way through the toe. We're going to do that with a medium to light pressure so that we really maintain the palpation in our fingers and we can feel those taunt bands. Once we identify the taunt bands, we're going to follow the taunt band and find the knot in the middle of the tissue. Sometimes that knot might be built up. We might have to get it to release a little or break down to actually get to the trigger point. That trigger point's going to feel like a little grain of sand or maybe a grain of rice. And we're going to press on that. We're going to ask our clients on a scale of 1 to 10 what the tenderness level is. Ideally, we're working at a therapeutic level of a 6, 7, maybe an 8, but more like a 6, 7. And then we're going to hold that for 8 to 12 seconds. You may feel that local twitch response while you're holding it, or it may refer to another area. If it refers to another area, you're going to go and hold that referral area at the same time as you're holding the original trigger point. Once that releases, you want to do effleurage and stretch the tissue, and you can even have them do a little bit of resistance. So go ahead and press into my hand. And following that resistance, you're going to go back into a stretch. All right? So again, this therapy is about half an hour. We're going to take 10 minutes to apply the product, the wrap, and the removal, and then about 10 minutes per leg for the trigger point therapy. You want to make sure that you manage your time. Trigger points, if you get sucked in for too long, you're going to end up spending 15 minutes on one leg and only have 5 for the other. So make sure you keep an eye on the clock so that you can manage your time, and then let your client know that they may have some small level of soreness. They can do contractions and releases on their feet at home, like if they feel any kind of achy or soreness. So go ahead and just contract your toes down and pull your heel, yep, and now relax. And as you do that, take a deep breath in. So breath in, and then as you relax it, breathe out. So contract, relax, contract, relax. And that's a really simple technique that they can do at home later on that evening in case they start feeling any type of soreness or tenderness through their feet and legs. All right, and we'll go ahead and cover our client up and let her get off the table. Thank you for viewing Biotone's Trigger Point Pedi. Although trigger point therapy is perfectly safe for most clients, there are a few precautions you should be aware of. Take caution when working with clients who have diabetes, extreme swelling in their feet, any type of open sore, or neuropathy. These conditions all require for you to take extra care. The Trigger Point Pedi protocol used microbuff body polish with 10 drops of Muscle Comfort Specialty Blend essential oil mixed in, and the Body Lux Hydrating Wrap. If you would like to purchase these or other Biotone products, visit biotone.com. And while you're there, you can see other treatment protocols by clicking on the video library so that you can view this and other protocols.